and how they say them.
All right. Thank you, Ambassador. Let me just cross over to Dr. Mustafa on this as well, because also looking at the cartoon, we are missing something. If we may just have it back so that we can see. He's actually called William Odinga Ruto. Right? William Odinga Ruto. And I think you can start from there and looking at what Ambassador is saying, that yes, we had all this diplomatic faux pas, so to speak, and then he was really not really acting in the wisest of fashion. But the question is, even with the optics that he should have been received, maybe with the upper reaches or officials in government, the question is, did he go in as a capacity as the deputy president or the presidential aspirant of, UDA at the end of the day, so that maybe the government was not really prepared to receive William Ruto as the vice president, as the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya?
Well, Dibal, thank you. Good morning, and good morning to colleagues. Since the deputy president traveled to Europe and US on taxpayers' money, then the assumption here is that that was an official visit. And it didn't turn out well, as I guess the planners wanted it to be, because of the low-level reception and what went on in the US and in the United Kingdom. What you see there on that cartoon, William Odinga Ruto, denotes confusion, and that confusion is what we see in our country's politics. One is as anyone representing the government traveling outside the Kenyan borders should go and speak on behalf of Kenya and Kenyans, and not to criticize Kenya on international platforms. It is very important, and I say this with deep respect, that we should always be in the business, particularly government officials. Some of us who are outside in the private sector, even when we travel outside the country, we respect this country and we say things that lift this country up. We know the challenges that are in this country, and therefore we should resolve them internally. You would never hear of, for example, Mike Pence, when he was serving under Trump, going around and backbiting and speaking ill of the United States of America, even though, and we know that Mike Pence disagreed with his boss, but they would disagree in private. Publicly, they will show unity of purpose and move that country forward. About this confusion is exactly what we are seeing in the Boda Boda industry. So our politics and Boda Boda, the matatu industry, is one and the same.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mustafa. Let's cross over to, of course, our representative there in the US, Dr. Peter Biara-Jack in Washington, D.C. Good evening, good to see you.
Well, good morning to you. It's good evening from me here.
Yes.
Still Women International Day, so I think it's not too late to wish all the women in Kenya and around the world a wonderful day, and to thank them for all the services that they render to this world. Just to add my voice on this topic, it was absolutely bizarre. I remember when President Kenyatta came a few months ago. Actually, when he arrived, I had a meeting that I had scheduled at the White House around the same time. And to compare the difference here at the level of reception is just absolutely amazing. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs is a level of Director General. If you go to our structures, it's not even at the level of Undersecretary, leave alone the Secretary of State or the Vice President. And I'm not even sure there were a lot of people that were very much keen on wanting to meet. I thought that DP was going to follow up on the business that Ruto, the business that President Kenyatta was able to get underway during his visit, which was quite substantial. But I was surprised that this was a political show, And I think it tells you everything that you need to know about the perception of him in this country. And I think there's a lot of things there that anyone that wants to read into the matter can read into. So I was shocked that this was actually paid by the taxpayers of Kenya, with a huge delegation of 30+ individuals. Not really clear what they were coming here to do. Not a lot of substantial meetings, to be very honest. Not much engagement at the Hills. They had a few meetings there. Not much engagement with the Chamber of Commerce here or any business dealings. Just bizarre. It felt like it was organized by like a think tank or some sort of a lobbyist firm here in Washington, D.C. I don't think really Kenya as a state really organized that visit. So it was very sad to see it happen. And I tuned into his lecture yesterday at Chatham House,
yes,
which was also another bizarre episode. So I really wonder what is going on, but it's basically Kenyan politics going international.
Kenyan politics going international indeed. All right, let's just come back to the editorial cartoon. We have the Star today, and it has this particular editorial cartoon that we can comment on it about what really happened. And the president right now has ordered a crackdown, massive crackdown on the Boda Boda riders in the country, appalling. I think when we do not respect our women, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, then we've really sunk in the lowest of a low as far as moral decadence is concerned. And that was really appalling. That was really degrading. And I think as a country, we need to condemn it roundly, and we laud the president for what he's doing right now. We're given to understand also Matiang'i and the IG should be appearing before the Senate this morning. This is the editorial cartoon. So we see Ozone here with the law. They are riding above the law.
The ball, it's... I got hit right in front of Yaya Center by Boda Boda a few months ago. The impunity of the Boda Bodas is just outrageous. And it represents the thuggish nature of the society that we live in which there is a descent to the bottom of the barrel, in which the free fall, a moral free fall in this country. I think that there's a combination of factors that feed into this kind of, outrageousness. And that's got to do with the kind of social media images, the kind of music, the kind of culture that the young people today are listening to. Which has got objectifies women and just take complete disregard of their role in this society. And it's something, there's nothing the government can do about it. The government can't do everything. The government can't say we're going to do that. The government cannot legislate morality. It can enforce the law, but it can't tell us how to feel and think and how to do those things. Can't do that to us. So I think that it has got to do with generally the sense, the economic morass that this country is in. And the Boda Boda thing helps 5.2 million people in Kenya. It's the daily bread for millions and millions of families. It's annual, about 400 billion shillings in annual turnover. But the Boda Boda is not a job, Debal. It is a dangerous job. It is a job that makes, because there are no jobs in the economy, that makes people and young people to go and take these jobs. So in this environment, this kind of thuggish culture emerges from, taking illicit drugs and smoking these things while they're driving. Thank you. But last point is this, that we absolutely, and the president is right about this, we cannot allow our women to be in matatus and inside their cars. It's just simply, it's unmanageable. I was very upset about it.
Yeah, Professor Kagwanja, this was really heart-wrenching when I looked at that. And I'm surprised. Maybe if he was a man, because I don't know if that car was tinted or not, he will have actually been dead by now.
I was shocked when one of our most senior citizens and very, very accomplished man said that he was harassed himself and escaped possibly through the skin of his teeth. That's General retired Karangi, Julius Karangi.
Wow.
I read that and I said, wow, how far have we reached in this menace? And therefore, where last evening when I was discussing with the colleagues about this, another very, very senior person said, I also escaped. In fact, I had to flash a gun in order to survive. He happened to be linked to securities. And therefore, how many of us will be able to carry guns so that we can survive death from border borders? Now, let's do two things. One, not demonize border borders, because as Hashi has mentioned, this is beginning to become a backbone of our economy, particularly the rural economy, when we need to transport items and so on. It's employment for many people. It is also a very, very great help to those
Enjoy
who
free delivery on
quick service. That's one.
Sorry.
Second, we should mainstream border borders into the traffic system. What that means is that when you discipline our transport system, you are inculcating morality into our public sphere. And this was the basis of Michuki laws, if you remember. That Michuki laws on matatus were about bringing law and order, not only to the matatu sector, but to the entire society. And therefore, we need now to mainstream, bring a new set of Michuki laws to the border borders. What does that mean? First and foremost, before anything else is done, anybody having a border must get police clearance, the certificate of good conduct. From the police, and they should carry it perhaps more. They can forget their license or whatever they are given to enable them to do this, but they must have police clearance, a certificate of good conduct, and they should not only have it a year, at least every quarter of a year you go and account. Why? They must feel that there is law, because now they are law unto themselves. And we need to deal with this.
Thank you. Right, thank you, Professor. Ambassador Erastus Bwenche, I know you've been driving and sometimes you are getting into a junction and off, on the wrong side of the road. Here is a border. The lights are blaring, it's a neon light, it's blinding you, you can't see. I don't know, how do you then react? Sometimes I know you really, blow your gasket, so to speak.
First, I think our hearts should go to the poor lady that went through this agony. And remember, it could have been your mother, your sister, or your daughter. And so it's unthinkable. It's really sad. The second one, it happened at a time when actually we were commemorating the Women's Day. And I think our hearts should go out and salute our women, because when you think about the challenges women have gone through worldwide and in Kenya, we're still struggling to talk of gender, mainstreaming and all that in a very difficult way. I mean, you can see even in Parliament how difficult it is for us to legislate or even implement some of the laws to just address the plight of women. But coming back to the question you have asked, I don't know even one of us who has driven in a route for a week does not get into a situation that you say, what is going on? As you rightly mentioned, you get to a junction or even you are on the road. There is one Boda Boda overtaking you on the left, another one on the right. I mean, it's chaos. But this chaos, and I want to agree very much with what my dear brother Peter said. It is becoming also part of our culture. You see it even with matatus. You see it with your fellow motorists. We as it says there, of course, and that cartoon is spot on, that the border borders are riding above the law. And I don't think you can say it is only the border borders. Whereas really at this point in time, one wants to salute the police for the action they have taken, the president for the stand he took, and all that has followed. I mean, yesterday you saw big numbers of Boda Bodas being arrested. Does it have to take the president for us to have this knee-jerk reaction? And now, my fear, and whereas I want to agree with Peter, my fear is, if you now try to put in administrative bottlenecks, we all know what is going to happen. You are now creating an avenue for extortionists, because going to get that license, going to get all this clearance, well and good. Imagine you are talking of 4 million people now who would be trooping to get this clearance and the rest. You are creating another bottleneck. Isn't there any way we can bring our culture and bring our decency without having to have a police have a gun on our head so that we can do it? I mean, for the time being, I think we can also use technology. There is now available technology like what Rwanda does that we can deploy, first to identify, to be able to trace, and of course, they should be trained and the rest.
Thank you.
All that.
Thank you. Dr. Mustafa, briefly on it.
Dibal, what we saw, first of all, we should condemn what happened on Wangari Maathai Road. The lady there was harassed. That was sexual assault. In fact, those Boda Boda people should be charged with a robbery with violence in the courts of law. The second thing, Dibal, what we saw on Wangari Maathai Road is testimony, is reflective of Kenyan culture, the Matatu culture, the political culture. There is not much difference between what happened in Wangari Maathai Road with the way our some of our political leaders are carrying themselves. They're just aping from them. Everything is topsy-turvy. The whole issue, Dibal, here that we now need to look at is it's no longer, the Boda Boda industry is no longer a safety issue. It is also a security issue. Remember Mungiki, the way Mungiki started? Boda Boda started, and they are moving, they are becoming a law unto themselves, and they are going to be worse than Mungiki. And we are talking about 4 million people here. Majority of them, I believe, they are trying to earn a living, given the 53% poverty levels, unemployment. But let us regulate this particular sector so that young people can earn a living, and in an organized manner.
Thank you. I don't know, that particular incident, somebody really captured it, but we are wondering on the many Kenyan ladies, especially Mashinani, who sometimes are taken into or they're ridden into the bushes by these Boda Boda riders and raped. Some of them, you know, they're robbed of their vitals that they do have at the end of the day. I wonder, when we come to the US, when it comes to, of course, you know, cycling, I know there we have dedicated lanes as well at the end of the day. How is the sobriety there in terms of just sanity on the road, briefly? Peter Bayer.
Well, you see, in the US, there is a lot of organization, as you correctly put it. The main thing is just basically setting the standards, setting the regulation, making sure that everybody knows what they need to do, what kind of clearances that they need. So it's a very basic organized structure. What kind of approval do you need to be able to operate a motorcycle? Of course, the motorcycle, they use the same lane and the same traffic regulations like cars. It's one of the bizarre things in Africa, especially in East Africa. You find that Boda Bodas, they don't wait for the red light. For the light to turn green. They go when the ride is red, and in Kampala is even crazier than it is in Nairobi, to be very honest. And then in Juba is out of control. But here in the US, the motorcycles, the same rules that apply to a vehicle are the same rules that apply to them. So everything is very standard. Of course, these incidences happen. And I'm very sorry, I'm very sad that this unfortunate incident occurred. And my heart goes out to this particular woman and her family. But I think at the same time here, Dibal, there is an issue here that we need to be very straightforward in addressing. Majority of people that operate and use Boda Boda are poor. These are people that cannot afford Ubers, for example, or Lyft, or some of the other services that are operated in vehicles. So here, when there is a major clamp down on this particular segment of the society, it is the poor people that are extremely affected. It's exactly what Museveni did a few months ago in Uganda when COVID hit. He basically shut down the Boda Boda industry, and that affected the majority of poor people. And we know the statistics of young people, lack of access to opportunities. So yes, there are rogue elements within here, but at the same time, I feel like when the states take such heavy-handed measures, they end up affecting good, law-abiding citizens that are just minding their own business and are trying to earn a living. So, and at the end of the day here is the downtrodden people that are hit hard. And I think it's quite unfortunate. And I think for President Kenyatta, he needs to think about these people because they are also Kenyan citizens. And not every one of them is a bad person.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. We have also the Standard, which Garo has done this editorial cartoon, and it's all about the upcoming election and what is hatching right now. You can see that particular cobra raising its head. This is a cobra of tribalism, and it says election hatching season. Just on a one line on this, we don't need to belabor the point. Ahmed Hashi, you know,
well,
the tone antenna has been very heightened on this.
Perfect drawing, a perfect signature of what is happening, what has been our country and what always happens. We have our camps, our barracks. You know, for me, Debal, I'm lucky, you know, I'm Maasai, I'm Waria, I'm Gikuyu, I'm all these things. So I'm able to think independently of this nonsense. Debal, you know, Ethiopia, if I could just rope that in.
No, just give a one-liner because we are bound to be going to a short break.
The civil conflict in Ethiopia started because of ethnicity and tribalism.
Thank you. Right.
I think it's wrong. The cartoon is wrong. It's reading the election wrong in 2022 because the axis around which election is, well, is not ethnicity. It is revolving around class. So the dynasties versus Hasras. We should be seeing the kind of divisions that the Hasran dynasty, you know, dichotomy is bringing to our society. In 2022, in 2017, 2013 and before, tribalism or ethnicity was a factor. In fact, this is what we should be looking at. In 2002, it was not ethnicity because the two candidates were from the same ethnic group. It was generational, it was a clash of generations, the old and the young. So we should look at these dynamics and see how vulnerable the ethnic factor itself is. I mean, in other words, somebody can always choose something else which divides society. It's not that it's uniting, but it divides society the same way ethnicity divides our society. Maybe somebody else is going to come with an agenda and position it in a certain way that will divide society more.
All right, Ambassador, you think the tribalism, is it an overtone right now or an undertone looking at, you know, the current campaigns that we do have?
One was always hoping that we can go into issues-based election. But unfortunately, as Peter is saying, it's turning to class or tribal. And I think this way we want to really guard and push the elections. I think we need to be told clearly about what each of these big, coalitions are going to push for. Is it a social democratic state? Is it whatever it is? And so that we can all understand and also people interrogate and understand. And I thought some of the campaigns have been doing exactly that, where you would see a presidential candidate. I've seen one go to the region, gather the population, listen, talk about the issues in those areas, address them. Let's push them to go in this direction.
Thank you.
So that we can avoid this kind of, always going in vicious circle.
Right. Mustafa?
Dibalia, I agree with Professor Kagwanja that there is this additional dimension of class, which is something that is actually very new in this particular election. The hustler, the all the things that go with politicking around the class, the poor versus the elites. However, the tribal part of it is still so intact. And this is why you still have tribal lords and tribal leaders going back to their backyards to actually, like that cartoon is doing there, to secure their nest and their eggs in their tribal fiefdoms, and then now moving forward or further to add that additional dimension that Professor Peter Kagwanja is saying.
Thank you.
And let me just say, Dibal, it just stinks, this tribal kind of politics, and it poses an existential threat to this country.
Right, thank you, thank you. Peter Biera Jack, briefly on it as well, one liner.
Well, I don't think there is class politics yet in Kenya. I think this is just a language of campaigns that particular candidates are using. We were just discussing this last week when we were talking about our good friend Kalonzo Musyoka, who was deciding whether to go with this one or go with that one or go with this one. And there is nothing class-based or ideologically based or policies-based. It's just individuals, leaders who have control of their tribes who are looking for position. That is, so the cartoon is absolutely apt and is on point.
Right, it's on point. Well, we can wind up that particular phase and just look at, we don't have to comment on this, we've already alluded to International Women's Day, and this is what Stano has drawn for us as well, as we wind up on that particular section. Happy Women's Day. Women's share, career opportunity bench. This is what Stano has drawn inside. The people daily today standing in solidarity with our women as well. And talking of women, we can now go back to Ukraine, where the mouth of a harried woman who has just fled war, battered Ukraine, carves up in a tentative smile when a Romanian immigration officer hands her a purple tulip he is plucked from a bouquet. A glimmer of hope and gratitude appear on the face of another woman as she clutches a container of food and accepts a single pink tulip from a Catholic priest at a train station in Poland. But even the kind gestures of strangers on International Women's Day were a weak palliative Tuesday for the anxious refugees who fled their homes, many with small children in tow. Instead of the chocolates, flowers, and kisses their friends and families in Ukraine usually bestow upon them, they instead have graciously made do with blooms proffered by unknown hands and the gifts of refugee in a foreign country. Take a look at these pictures from Associated Press.
KTN News. Get the whole story.